It's kind of wild when you think about it. Every time you send an email, whether it's to your friend across town or your cousin in another country, it somehow gets there in seconds. You type something out, hit send, and boom, it's gone. But have you actually stopped to wonder what happens in those few seconds? Like, how does your email magically appear in someone else's inbox halfway around the world? Because email isn't magic, it's actually this whole behind the scenes process involving multiple servers, protocols, and networks working together. And honestly, once you understand how it all works, it makes the whole thing feel even cooler. So in this video, I'm breaking down exactly how email works, from the moment you hit send to the moment it lands in someone's inbox. And I'll explain it in a way that actually makes sense, without all the confusing tech jargon. Alright, so first things first. When you're sending an email, you're probably doing it one of two ways. Either you're using a web browser, like when you go to Gmail, Yahoo, or Outlook on Chrome or Safari, or you're using an email client, which is basically an app on your computer or phone that handles your email. Think Microsoft Outlook, Apple Mail, Thunderbird, stuff like that. Now, for most of us, we just use the web browser because it's easier. But in a lot of companies and businesses, they actually prefer email clients because they have more control over security and settings. So we're going to talk about both, but we'll focus more on the technical side of things because that's where the real interesting stuff happens. All right, so let's say you want to send an email to your friend Tom. His email is tom@yahoo.com and yours is something like alice@gmail.com. You open up your email, click compose, type in Tom's address, write your message, and hit send. Simple enough, right? But what happens next is where things get interesting. As soon as you hit send, your email doesn't just fly directly to Tom's inbox. Instead, it gets handed off to something called an SMTP server. SMTP stands for Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, and its entire job is to send emails. You can think of SMTP as the postal worker who picks up your letter and starts the delivery process. Now, whenever you set up an email account on your phone or computer, there are two types of servers you need to configure, one for sending emails and one for receiving them. The one for sending is always the SMTP server. So if you're using Gmail, your outgoing server would be something like smtp.gmail.com. Once your email reaches the SMTP server, the server does a quick check. It looks at your message, the attachments, and makes sure everything follows the rules, like checking if the file size is too big or if the content looks suspicious. Once it passes those checks, the email gets put in a queue, basically waiting in line to be sent out. Now, here's where it gets a bit technical, but stick with me because it's actually pretty logical. The SMTP server looks at the email address you're sending to, in this case, tom@yahoo.com, and it focuses on the part after the @ symbol, which is yahoo.com. That's the domain name. But here's the thing, computers don't understand names. They only understand numbers, specifically IP addresses. So the SMTP server needs to figure out the IP address of Yahoo's email server. To do that, it reaches out to something called a DNS server, which stands for Domain Name System. The DNS server is basically like a phone book for the internet. You give it a name, like yahoo.com, and it gives you back the corresponding IP address. Once the SMTP server has that IP address, it can connect to Yahoo's email server. And once the connection is established, your email gets broken up into smaller pieces called packets. Think of it like tearing a letter into small chunks and sending them separately. These packets travel over the internet, hopping through several routers along the way until they finally reach Yahoo's server. When the email arrives at Yahoo's server, it doesn't just get dumped into Tom's inbox right away. First, the server runs some security checks. It scans for viruses, spam, phishing attempts, all that stuff. And if everything looks good, it places the email into Tom's mailbox, which is basically just a storage area on the server. Now, this is where the second set of protocols comes in, the ones responsible for receiving email. These are called POP3 and IMAP. Both of them do the same basic thing, which is pull emails from the server and deliver them to your device, but they do it in slightly different ways. POP3 stands for Post Office Protocol version 3. When you use POP3, your email client connects to the server, downloads all the emails sitting in your inbox, and then, here's the key part, it usually deletes them from the server. So once your emails are downloaded to your device, they're gone from the server. It's like picking up your mail from a PO box and taking it home with you. The box is now empty. This can be a problem if you use multiple devices. Let's say you check your email on your laptop using POP3. All your emails get downloaded to your laptop and deleted from the server. Now, if you try to check your email on your phone later, those emails won't be there anymore because they've already been downloaded and removed. That's one of the big downsides of POP3. IMAP, on the other hand, is smarter. IMAP stands for Internet Message Access Protocol, and instead of downloading your emails and deleting them, it syncs them. So when you use IMAP, your email client connects to the server and downloads a copy of your emails, but the originals stay on the server. Not only that, but IMAP also syncs your entire folder structure. Your inbox, sent items, drafts, spam, custom folders, everything. So if you read an email on your phone, it'll show up as read on your laptop too. If you delete something on your computer, it gets deleted everywhere. Basically, IMAP keeps everything in sync across all your devices, which is why it's way more popular today. Almost everyone uses IMAP now because we all have multiple devices, phones, tablets, laptops, and we want our email to be the same everywhere. So back to our example. Tom's email client is set up to use IMAP. So when he opens his email app, it connects to Yahoo server using IMAP, downloads the email you sent him, and displays it on his screen. But the email is still sitting on Yahoo's server too, so if he checks his email on his phone later, it'll be there as well. And that's pretty much the whole process. Your email goes from your device to your SMTP server, then across the internet to the recipient's server, and finally gets pulled down to their device using either POP3 or IMAP. But before we wrap up, there's one more thing worth talking about, and that's email security. Because even though email is super convenient, it's also kind of a mess when it comes to security. Hackers love targeting email because it's an easy way to trick people into giving up sensitive information, passwords, credit card numbers, bank details, all that stuff. And they do this through things like phishing and spoofing. Phishing is when someone sends you a fake email pretending to be a trusted source, like your bank or a company you use, and tries to get you to click a link or download something malicious. Spoofing is when someone fakes the sender's email address to make it look like the email is coming from someone you trust. These attacks are super common and they're getting more sophisticated. That's why it's so important for companies to secure their email infrastructure. And one of the best ways to do that is with something called DMARC, which stands for Domain-Based Message Authentication, Reporting, and Conformance. DMARC is basically a way for email servers to verify that an email actually came from who it says it came from. It helps prevent spoofing by checking the sender's identity before delivering the email. The problem is, setting up DMARC can be pretty complicated, and a lot of people avoid it because it's confusing and time-consuming. But there are tools out there that make it way easier. For example, EasyDMARC is a platform that helps you set up and manage email authentication without needing to be a tech expert. It walks you through the process step by step, and once it's set up, you can monitor everything from a simple dashboard. It helps protect against phishing, spoofing, ransomware, and business email compromise, which are some of the most common email-based attacks. If you run a business or manage a website with a custom domain, it's definitely worth looking into. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to check it out. So yeah, that's how email works. It's this whole chain of servers and protocols working together to move your message from point A to point B in just a few seconds. And while it might seem complicated at first, once you break it down, it's actually pretty logical. SMTP handles sending, IMAP and POP3 handle receiving, and DNS helps everything find its way. The next time you hit send on an email, you'll know exactly what's happening behind the scenes. Your message is being handed off to an SMTP server, routed through the internet, checked for security issues, and finally delivered to the recipient's inbox where they can access it from any device. Pretty cool when you think about it. Anyway, I hope this made sense and helped you understand how email actually works. If you found this useful, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss future videos. And if you have any questions or want me to explain something else, drop a comment below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.